Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. And if you haven't already, be sure to go over here and follow me and subscribe to me on those places. Follow me on Creation Social, which is my own Twitter alternative. Follow me on Spotify, subscribe to me on BitChute, subscribe to me on Rumble, or you can choose to follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, which is a great way to stay up to date on all of my content as it comes out. Links to all of that will be in the description box below in my Linktree link. So hopefully I'll see you at those places. Now on to the main subject of today's video, which, by the way, if you like today's video, be sure to subscribe. Leave your likes and comments down below because that helps the channel grow more than you know. But today we're going to be talking about a question that has come up in light of recent articles that I came across that we're going to talk about in today's video. Why are younger men and older women dating each other in the modern age in the way that they do? The reason why this is even an issue coming up is because I came across this tweet that you see here on the screen, where a woman named Lisa Brighton shared a screenshot of a New York Times article that we're going to look at here shortly. The article is titled, "Older Women Are in Demand by Younger Men." Subtitle is, "What a Shift in the Dating Preferences of Younger Men Reveals About Our Changing Norms." Lisa herself said, "This is actually true. Lately, many of my girlfriends, mid to late 30s, have been telling me they are getting approached by early 20s men. Very confidently, I would add. What's going on?" Now, a guy named Coach Greg Adams responded to her tweet, and he said, "Will you look at that? All of a sudden, age gaps are appropriate when older women want to entertain younger men. This is why I unapologetically date younger women no matter what people have to say about it." Now, for some of you watching this may seem totally out of left field. Like, where is this guy coming from? What's he even talking about? To get an idea of what he's talking about, I would encourage you to watch my recent video titled, "Western Women Hypocritically Condemn Older Men for Dating Younger Women." And as you might be able to see if you're watching this in 4K resolution on a really big monitor, in this video I respond to a woman on Twitter who said that it was okay for young women, primarily young women in their early 20s, to date men in their 30s. But that it was weird and indicated that the man was a pedo if he chose to date the younger woman who was interested in dating him. So that whole video, if you want to see that whole line of thought unraveled, I would encourage you to go to the description box down below and check out that particular link. As far as today goes, let's start with that New York Times article in particular. Older women are in demand by younger men. And there's a couple parts of it I want to read, and I think we'll just start there. So the article starts out by saying, "Younger men are increasingly seeking out older women, and it's not just a dating trend. It's a shift in power, desire, and modern masculinity." In this episode of The Opinions, the opinion culture editor Nadja Spiegelman talks with the writer and psychoanalyst Jamison Webster and Emily Liebert, a staff writer at The Cut, about why age gap relationships are so popular and whether they signal liberation, backlash, or something more complicated. Then you scroll into the article, and this is where you find something more interesting. "Women over 40 have more spending power and social capital than ever before, so is that why these age gap relationships are now all the rage?" We're going to talk in quite general stereotypes because that's the only way to talk about large groups of people by gender and age. We've all been seeing this in film and television. There's Baby Girl, there's the reality show Age of Attraction, there's The Idea of You. There's more that I can list over the past several years, and so I was also really curious if this is actually happening in the world, not just in the media. And I reached out to the dating app Field and I asked them to run numbers on this and was just like, "Are you seeing this in your dating app data?" And they said that over the past 2 years, the number of men who are interested in dating women older than themselves, has increased by 64%. And that is particularly true among the youngest bracket of men, 18 to 25-year-old men. This is happening, and I'm really curious about why it's happening now. Now notice what they said about this pattern of younger men dating women older than themselves. It is most true for men 18 to 25. Very interesting, because just a few days ago, another article kind of on the same subject came out in the New Statesman, which I believe is a UK publication. The article is titled, "Revealed: The New Radicalism Among Young Women. Merlin Strategy's exclusive polling reveals a growing gender divide among under 30s." And so I'm going to read the first 3 paragraphs and then discuss the chart that's in between paragraph 2 and 3. The prevailing narrative is that young men under the influence of the manosphere and enchanted by men's rights activists and misogynists such as Andrew Tate are being politically radicalized faster and in greater numbers than young women. The result is a gulf in political sensibility between young British women and men who are now dramatically inclined to the populist right compared with other parts of the population. It's a compelling story, but it isn't completely accurate. Instead, it is young women moving to the radical left that is widening the political gender gap among the under 30s. Merlin Strategy has surveyed exclusively for the New Statesman 2,000 British 18 to 30-year-olds to explore this phenomena in more detail. As expected, we found that there are significant divides between young men and young women, but they are not just confined to political views. Gen Z women are more left-wing than their male peers when it comes to politics and economics. This generation of women is also much more pessimistic about the country and their own lives than men, and substantially more negative towards men than the men are towards women. 72% of men under 30 say they have a positive view of the opposite gender, compared with just 50% of women of the same age. 38% of men say they feel very positively towards women, while only 18% of women say the same about men. This trend is particularly pronounced among women under 25, of whom just 35% feel positively towards men. And that's where this nice little graph here in the middle, I'll try and center it here a little bit, comes into play. You can see the color bars. The purple is positive, the tan is neutral, the red represents negative. So when you look at men under 30, we see 72% have a positive view of women, 21% have a neutral view of women, and 7% of men under 30 have a negative view of women. Now you go to women under 30, they have a 50% positive view of men, a 29% neutral view, and a 21% negative view of men. But then you get into the women under 25, and it's very, very bad as far as men's hopes for dating in that 18 to 25 bracket. Women under 25 only have a 35% positive view of men. They have a 37% neutral view of men and a 27% negative view of men. So women under 25, 65% of them either have a negative view of men or they have a whatever view of men. Why is that? Why do women have such a negative or neutral view of men when they're under 25? Well, a different UK publication offers some insight into why that is. This particular one came out in 2019 in The Independent and was titled "Lack of Economically Attractive Men to Blame for Decline in Marriage Rates, Study Suggests." Authors say many young men have little to bring to the marriage bargain. In other words, if you're a man in that under 30 bracket, basically, but especially that 18 to 25, and you don't have your own place, you don't have your own car, vehicle, you don't have your own insurance, you don't have a job that pays well enough to finance all that stuff, if you don't have all those things going for you at the same time, on a cultural level, we are taught that such men are not worth being with. Now, this wouldn't be such a problem if it wasn't for the fact that because of the way our economy is now, most men don't reach that particular stage of economic attractiveness until their 30s, and in some cases closer to 40. So the normal experience of most men going through this dynamic is that their 20s were spent feeling really lonely and just trying to get by and experiencing a lot of rejection from the women in their lives. Which also leads to these women pursuing older men who meet this economic attractive standard, and it leads to older women, as we saw earlier in the video, being more open to dating younger men. For different reasons, though. So yes, the lack of economically attractive men in the UK, especially because that's where this article is based out of, and where the previous article we were looking at is based out of, this lack of economically attractive men is what contributes to 65% of women under the age of 25 either having a negative or just a mere neutral view of men. It's because these men lack the economic attractiveness that they're looking for in a partner or a husband. And in case you think it's just a UK thing and it's not something that bears in the US, well, Jennifer Lopez, back in 2018, I believe it was, for Business Insider, said that men are useless before 33. And then the author of the article argues why she's actually not wrong. And since the article's pretty short, I think we can just read most of it straight through. If you've ever tried to find love on a dating app, you know that the process, with its seemingly endless slog of potential matches to swipe through, can be exhausting. But what if you had a guardian angel to guide you through the swiping process? And what if that guardian angel happened to be Jennifer Lopez? In a new episode of Tinder's Swipe Sessions video series, Lopez helped Brooke, a 29-year-old country singer, weed through her possible Tinder suitors. Now, before we continue, if you know what Tinder is, not the best place to meet people, but let's keep going. Brooke said she wanted a type of guy who could chop wood. So, while swiping through some of Brooke's options, in which she nixed a guy for having a bio that read, "If you store ketchup in the refrigerator, it's not going to work out," Lopez doled out some sage dating advice. Guys until they're 33 are really useless, Lopez said. According to Jane Greer, a New York-based relationship expert and the author of What About Me? Stop Selfishness from Ruining Your Relationship, Lopez's advice is actually pretty solid, especially if you're specifically looking for commitment. It can take men into their early 30s to establish their professional career and feel a sense of financial stability, which helps them feel more secure in life, Greer told Insider. As a result, this can give them the maturity that comes with accomplishment, experience, and success. And you know what, guys? Greer is right. Because, as I've talked about in previous videos, and as I have lived through in my own personal life, men don't establish their professional careers and they don't get to that financially stable situation that you want to be in if you want to be a provider. Most men don't reach that point until their early 30s or their mid 30s. Sometimes their late 30s, and in a few rare cases, their 40s. So that's why people like Jennifer Lopez say that, well, men really aren't useful until they're 33 and above. But notice what that's saying. That whole thing is based on a materialistic outlook. What can these men provide is what drives that. It's not about love. It's not about whether they have good moral character and would make good fathers and husbands. It's about what can they provide me. That's where this whole, well, they're useless until they're 33 comes from. Now, the article then goes on to say, this doesn't mean guys in their 20s should automatically be off limits, but it does offer an explanation as to why some men seem to make a sudden shift in their ability to commit around the time they turn 30. Well, from my lived experience, it's not so much that men aren't willing to commit until they reach this point. It's that they go through a lot of rejection leading up to that point. If they try to pursue relationships or more while they're still in their 20s, still trying to build something of themselves, Basically, it's a case of the old tale of, a girl and a guy getting together when they're young and poor, and then they basically help each other build up their lives until they both work themselves to the point where they have all these things they want, the financial stability, the home, and all of that stuff I've mentioned before. That whole narrative is a rare exception these days. A more common one is that a lot of women want to basically be there at the finish line, as they say. They want to wait until the guy reaches the end of that journey where he goes from, in essence, rags to riches. He goes from being just some poor broke guy who's really young to being a guy who's able to provide well enough that he can support a family. A lot of women tend to be at the finish line when it comes to dating and relationships with guys, and so that becomes a common experience for men that many YouTubers have talked about, who are far more knowledgeable about relationships than I am. They talk about how, a guy goes through his 20s and he's constantly rejected by women, but then in his 30s, when he's suddenly got financial stability in his own place and his own ride and he can pay for all his own stuff, suddenly he has options in dating. And then a lot of those guys have to start, applying filters and being wise in who they date at that point. So if you're watching this video and you're wondering about the recent trend of older women and younger men dating each other and wondering why they would do that, well, now you have a really good idea why younger men would be willing to pursue older women in a dating context. It's because women their own age, statistically speaking, are more likely to have a negative or neutral opinion about them and generally don't view them as anything other than a human wallet who can provide something for them. And for a lot of these younger men going after these older women, as we could see from the data of that one article in particular, these older women are less likely to have a negative or neutral opinion about men. They're more likely to have a positive opinion about men, which in those cases, those older women will treat these younger men better. They'll be more pleasant, and they'll have good times socially in terms of smiles and laughter and making the man feel like he actually matters and he's not just a resource. That's why the younger men go with these older women in these situations. And as far as older women going towards younger men in these situations, what I've seen on the internet from these older women that talk about these situations is that these younger men tend to be less jaded and less baggage emotionally in terms of having gone through a life of being rejected by women like older men tend to have gone through. And so they view the younger men as more desirable in that regard because they're more likely to appreciate them and be able to have fun with them and not have such a jaded outlook on life. That's what I've seen on the internet when these older women talk about why they date these younger men. That's generally how it goes, and as we've seen from all the articles we've looked at, there's some very, very weird but true reasons why young men are willing to pursue older women in this situation. But anyway, if you're watching this and you found this helpful at all, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button, leave your likes and comments down below. If you have experiences with these situations, or if you've observed things about these situations, leave those in the comments section as well, because it seems like these days a lot of the best places to find the testimonies and the stories of guys who go through these things, or women who go through these things, tends to be in social media comment sections, whether that be on YouTube or whether that be on X, formerly known as Twitter. So please, by all means, leave your comments and your stories down below. Thank you for watching, and have an excellent day.